Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we'll be discussing the concepts of culture. If you missed the video where I explained the definition of culture and the various types of culture, do well to check this video. I gave a detailed explanation of what culture means, how it affects us, and the various types of culture that we have. But in today's video, I'll be discussing the various concepts of culture that we have. I said earlier in that video that culture has a way in shaping how our society is formed, how our norms, what we regard as acceptable and non-acceptable in our society. And I also stated that as an individual, you are not who you are, but the culture that you grew up with has a way of socializing you into who you actually have become. So today we'll be looking at the various concepts of culture and how it has helped shape our social identity. So one of the concepts of culture we'll be looking at today is cultural universal. When we say cultural universal, these are elements, patterns, and institutions that exist across all of the society. That is, they are things that we would see in society A, we see them also in society B, they're scattered in all of the societies that you can think of. But then, they may not exactly appear the way they appear in every society. For instance, we have language in every society. We know that we have a language that we speak. And language is one of distinguisher of a culture, and an important driver of culture. So the language we speak in the Yoruba culture, we have a language we speak in Igbo culture, Hausa culture, we have their language. If you're a Swedish, if you're a German, there is language in every culture. So that is culture universal. We also have, there is no society or culture that you get to that we don't have family structure or a kinship system. We also have religious belief. And there is no society that you get to that there is no form of governance. It might be traditional, it may be modern, but there's a form of governance and there are laws that guide that society. Another concept of culture is cultural relativity, and this is very important when we discuss the issue of culture. Cultural relativity is the principle that culture should be understood or evaluated based on the norm and value of that culture rather than the norm and value of another culture. What does that simply mean? It means that if I am a Yoruba person and I want to judge the Igbo culture, I should judge the Igbo culture based on the value and the principle of Igbo culture rather than on the value and principle of the Yoruba culture. So I should not just look at the way the Igbos eat and I conclude based on the way I eat as a Yoruba person that, the Igbo people don't eat well. I should be able to judge them based on the principle of that culture. And that is what is going to help us appreciate every culture and give us perspective and it will prevent what we call stereotyping and prejudice. Also help us appreciate culture better. Another concept that is popular is ethnocentrism. And this refers to the tendency to see or view your culture as better or superior than other people's culture. You may say that, I'm Calabari, and Calabari is superior to the Igbo culture. That is ethnocentrism. In one part, it is very good because it helps create and boost our self-esteem. It makes us feel and represent our culture very well. But when it becomes too much, it becomes an issue where we begin to stereotype and see other culture as inferior to our own. So ethnocentrism has to have a certain balance to make it healthy. Another concept of culture that we'll be looking at is cultural diffusion. When we say cultural diffusion, this is the process through which cultural elements such as our ideals, our custom, our technologies, our practices would spread from my society to other society. So the things I do in my culture, the language that I speak, the way I eat, the technology we we use, our artifacts and advancements, and how it will spread from my own culture to other culture is what we refer to as cultural diffusion. One of the ways cultural diffusion actually happen is through migration. I explained that in my previous video. Through trade. You know, as we trade, I want to trade with a Chinese man, I begin to learn the way he speaks, he begins to learn my mannerism and all that. Before you know it, there is a diffusion. My culture would shift to the Chinese person, and all same as his own culture will also diffuse into my own culture, because I would try to learn how they do things. So would he also try to learn how I do things. Another means through which culture diffusion happens real fast is through the media and through globalization that is happening. And you can see that is spreading through and through, as how their architecture work in Australia. I look at it in the media and I try to copy it into what I do here in Nigeria. Another important concept of culture is cultural lag. Cultural lag actually occurs when material culture evolves more rapidly than the non-material culture. And I explained in the last video what material culture is. That material cultures are the things that we can touch, the things that we can see, the things that are tangible, while non-material culture are the things that are intangible, the things that we can actually feel. An example of a material culture could be our artifacts, our buildings, our architecture. Non-material culture could be our belief, our language, and all that. So when our material culture begins to move on rapidly than the non-material culture, we would say that there is a cultural lag. And this phenomenon was actually introduced by a sociologist called William Ogborn. Another concept is of culture is cultural shock. Cultural shock is the feeling of disorientation that an individual experiences when they encounter a new culture. So for instance, I moved to Europe and I see people kissing on the road. You know, I'll be taken aback, because in Nigeria, we don't do things like that. I'll be taken aback. Or for instance, an European comes to Nigeria and they see a woman strapping a baby to her back so tight, you know, with wrapper, he or she will be shocked and will be surprised. You know, that feeling of mild disorientation is what we call cultural shock. And it happens in stages. We have the honeymoon stage. This is when you are excited, you are fascinated by this new culture, or you're just shocked, like you're really shocked. The second stage is what we refer to as the crisis stage. It causes when cultural shock actually leads to frustration, anxiety, or maybe homesickness, when you begin to experience so much cultural differences and you begin to get tired of that place. Then the next stage will start setting, which is the adjustment stage. You begin to gradually adapt to that culture that you are seeing. Then finally you move to the last stage, which is regarded to as the acceptance stage, where you fully accept that culture and see it as normal. Then lastly, we'll be talking about the symbolic culture. This refers to the symbols, the signs, the gestures, the ritual and the custom that is specific to each culture. For instance, national flag. Different country has their flag. This is one of what we refer to as the symbolic culture. They hold a symbol. Whenever we see the flag of a particular country, it helps identify that country. And in instances where it is being hoisted, we then respect, we pay homage to these symbols. And that'll be all for today. And I'm giving you an assignment in this video. The assignment is how best can you as an individual be ethnocentric about your culture without fostering prejudice and discrimination. Now, you are going to do the assignment, then you send it to my mail, olasumbatota03@gmail.com. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, to subscribe, and to turn on your notification button. Until next time, bye-bye.